Jungkook finds Jimin'S message, never sent. Don't open that folder, Jungkook, wait. The voice cracked through the silence of the abandoned dorm room like lightning over a still lake. Jungkook froze, the cursor blinking on the old laptop screen in front of him. His hand trembled over the mouse. Dust particles swirled in the slant of pale afternoon light that cut through the cracked blinds. The room smelled faintly of old fabric softener and time. Memories folded into corners no one had dared to revisit since he left. Click. The folder labeled, Never Sent, opened, revealing a single file, dated precisely one day before Jimin'S sudden disappearance. Jungkook's breath caught in his throat. He clicked again, and the message opened like a wound. Taehyung, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't say it out loud. I'm sorry for disappearing, but there are things I never told you, things I had to hide to keep you safe. The screen blurred as Jungkook's vision flooded. He could barely hear the city noise beyond the window now, only the hammering in his chest. His world, once neatly stitched together by habit and performance schedules, had started unraveling thread by thread ever since Jimin vanished 6 months ago. No signs, no calls, no body, just absence dense as gravity. And now this. A message never meant to be found. The digital ghost of Jimin's voice stirred something Jungkook had long buried under fatigue and silence. He reread the message, nodding the cryptic wording. Things I had to hide. From who? From what? The guilt crept up his spine like ice water. He had been the last one to see Jimin that night, eyes distant, words clipped, a bruise he didn't explain. Jungkook had said nothing, had asked nothing, had been too scared of the truth. And now it was clawing its way back. In the months since, Jungkook had become quieter, more withdrawn. He still smiled, still performed, but his eyes had dimmed, like a theater light turned low after the curtain falls. The others noticed. Taehyung had tried to reach out. Namjoon had called late into the night. None of them knew the full extent of what he was carrying. Until this message. The cursor hovered over the rest of the folder. More files, audio clips, scans of handwritten pages. He clicked on an audio file marked Fragment 3. They're watching me. I thought I could run, but it's not enough. If anything happens, go to the lighthouse, the one we found that summer. Jungkook staggered back from the desk. The lighthouse. He hadn't thought about that place in years. A hidden cove along the southern coast, secluded, secret. They had gone there once, just the two of them, to escape the world. It had been a memory Jungkook clung to in his darkest hours. Sand between their toes, the laughter, the salt-heavy wind as they ran barefoot under a silver moon. His phone buzzed on the table, jolting him back. Unknown number. A single text. Don't look for him. You won't like what you find. His blood ran cold. Every instinct screamed to run, to delete everything, to pretend this never happened. But something in Jungkook, the same thing that had once made him leap across a concert stage like it was the only place he belonged, ignited. He grabbed his keys, the laptop, and a jacket. His mind was already on the road. Whatever Jimin had gotten into, Jungkook was going to find out. And this time, he wouldn't look away. Are you really doing this? Taehyung's voice cracked through the silence, low and tense, as Jungkook threw a duffel bag into the backseat of his car. You find one weird message on a dead laptop, and now you're chasing ghosts. Jungkook didn't answer. His jaw clenched tight, eyes shielded behind dark sunglasses though the sun had barely risen. The message still looped in his head. Go to the lighthouse, the one we found that summer. He's gone, Jungkook, Taehyung pressed, stepping closer. You think we haven't tried everything? Namjoon hired private investigators. Yoongi dug through every contact Jimin ever had. We found nothing. There's no sign of him because maybe he didn't want to be found. Don't say that. Jungkook's voice was sharp, almost too sharp. You think I wanted to believe that he just left us, left me. Taehyung flinched, then shook his head. I'm saying you're not the only one who lost him. The silence between them swelled like a storm cloud, heavy and thick. Jungkook turned to the driver's seat. If you won't help me, just stay out of my way. I'm not letting you go alone. A beat passed. Get in. The road to the coast was long and winding, flanked by rust-colored cliffs and whispering pine forests. Neither of them spoke for hours. Jungkook's grip on the steering wheel remained stiff, his mind racing through fragments of the message. They're watching me. I thought I could run. What had Jimin gotten himself into? The lighthouse emerged from the horizon just before dusk, tall and skeletal against a blood-orange sky. It hadn't worked in years, left to decay on the edge of the sea like a forgotten monument. The gate creaked as they stepped through, wind slicing through their jackets. "This place gives me the creeps," Taehyung muttered. Jungkook didn't answer. He was already walking toward the lighthouse door. It was open. Dust covered the floor, thick and undisturbed, except for one set of footprints. Fresh. "Someone been here," Jungkook whispered. They climbed the spiral staircase, each step echoing up the hollow tower. The smell of salt and rust grew stronger with each level. At the top, the observation room was filled with wind and broken glass. And there, taped to the inside of the shattered window, was a note. "Too late, Kook. They know you opened it." A crash rang out below. Both men turned sharply, eyes wide. Someone else was in the lighthouse. Taehyung swore and pulled Jungkook back. "We need to go, now." "No," Jungkook hissed. "If someone's here, they know where he is. We're not leaving." Another crash, louder, then footsteps. Jungkook grabbed a rusted metal rod from the floor. Taehyung followed, fists clenched. They descended quietly, breath held, shadows flickering along the walls from the setting sun. On the third-floor landing, they saw him, tall, hooded, back turned. "Hey," Jungkook shouted. The figure turned and froze. "Who the hell are you?" Taehyung demanded. The man stepped forward, slowly removing his hood. It was Jimin. But it was someone they knew. Park Seung-min, a former manager, fired 3 years ago for mismanaging tour finances, and for something darker no one had ever confirmed. His presence here was like blood on white sheets. "You shouldn't have come here," Seung-min said calmly. "Where is he?" Jungkook growled. "What the hell did you do to him?" Seung-min tilted his head. "Still loyal, I always admired that about you, but loyalty has a price, and your friend," he smiled, cold and joyless. "He paid it." Jungkook lunged. The fight was quick, brutal, and filled with too much rage. Metal clanged, fists cracked bone. Taehyung pinned Seung-min against the wall as Jungkook screamed, "Where is he?" Seung-min spat blood and whispered, "You're too late." "Is he alive?" Taehyung shouted. "Tell us." A chuckle. "That depends on what you call living." Jungkook hit him again. And then, from Seung-min's jacket, a phone slipped out. Jungkook grabbed it, hands shaking. The screen was locked, but the background image. It was Jimin. His eyes swollen, staring into the lens like a warning, or a cry for help. Taehyung swore under his breath. "Holy shit." The sound of sirens tore through the air, before they realized Seung-min had triggered a silent alarm. "We have to move," Jungkook said, breath ragged. "What about him?" "He's done talking." They ran, through the woods, down the cliffside, into the dark. Later that night, hiding in a cheap motel soaked in fluorescent light and damp silence, Jungkook finally cracked the phone open. Inside was a single video file. He pressed play. Jimin appeared, pale and bruised, seated in a dim room. He looked straight into the camera. "If you're seeing this, then I failed." His voice trembled. "They're part of everything. You think this was just about me? No, they're bigger than HYBE, bigger than anything we knew. Don't trust anyone, not the company, not the law, not even them." He paused. His eyes darkened. Especially not Seokjin. The screen went black. Jungkook's heart stopped. Taehyung backed away slowly, lips parted in shock. He didn't just say that. But he had. And now everything they thought they knew, about Jimin's disappearance, about their own team, was beginning to fracture. Jungkook stared at the blank screen. His hand tightened into a fist. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about finding Jimin anymore. It was about surviving the truth. The video dropped at 2:46 a.m. No warning, no source, just a sudden tidal wave across every platform, spreading like a virus, pixel by pixel. It opened with static, a flicker of night vision grain, and then Jungkook. Alone, sitting on the cold concrete steps of a stairwell, his hoodie soaked with sweat, his chest heaving as if trying to breathe through broken glass. He muttered something, barely audible. Then, clearer. I don't know who I am anymore. The camera kept rolling. 5 minutes, 10, he cried. He hit the wall, he apologized to no one and everyone. It wasn't violent. It wasn't scandalous. But it was raw. Terrifyingly real. By dawn, the internet had split in two. One side screamed for protection. This is what you did to him. He's not weak, he's human. Mental health advocates rallied. Fans flooded platforms with hashtags of support, videos of themselves crying, recounting how Jungkook's voice had saved them. The other side, cruel, predictable, memes, mockery, cold analyses of whether this was a meltdown or a PR stunt. News anchors debated whether he needed intervention. Jungkook sat in the dark, phone in his hand, watching it all unfold in silence. Across the room, Jimin paced like a caged animal. I told you not to let them get this, he spat. We buried that footage. They had it all along, Jungkook replied quietly. They were waiting for the perfect moment. Yoongi sat near the corner, eyes glued to a monitor as he tracked online activity. They timed it after your press conference. Classic move. Tear down the martyr before he becomes a symbol. Jungkook put down his phone. They underestimated one thing. Yoongi looked up. What? I'm not ashamed anymore. Jimin froze. Jungkook stood slowly, walking toward them. They think they've exposed me, but that's the irony, isn't it? That video doesn't humiliate me. It sets me free. Jimin's voice was hoarse. You were crying, breaking down. You said you wanted it all to end. I did, Jungkook said without flinching. And maybe people need to see that even the strongest can be crushed, that this system doesn't build legends, it breaks them. Yoongi looked up from his screen. Then we take control of the story, own it, reframe it before they do. And that's exactly what they did. Hours later, Jungkook went live. Again. No music, no apology, no drama. Just him, looking directly into the camera. You saw the video, he began. And yes, it's real, I was breaking, and I'm not ashamed. He paused, his voice steady. I didn't cry because I was weak. I cried because I was surviving. He talked, for 20 minutes, about fear, about pressure, about the nights that blurred together in hotel rooms with no clocks and mirrors that lied, about smiling for fans when he hadn't eaten in 2 days, about collapsing backstage with no one noticing. Jimin watched from the side of the room, tears silently trailing down his face. Jungkook ended the live with a whisper. This isn't the end of me. It's the beginning of me, honest. And with that, he signed off. The next day, The Guardian, Time, and Rolling Stone ran front-page features. The cost of ideology. Jeon Yoongijungkook, not a product, a person. Even former idols began coming forward. Not all, but enough. One by one, masked by voice filters and blurred faces, they spoke out in a documentary-style stream hosted anonymously by Jungkook's team. The stories matched. Isolation. Control. Silence weaponized like currency. HYBE stayed quiet. No statements, no lawsuits, just silence. Which was louder than any denial. Until a message came through Yoongi's encrypted line. From someone unexpected. Hosak. Meet me, alone. Yoongi hesitated, reading it over and over before calling Jimin. He's been MIA for months, Jimin said, frowning. Why now? Because maybe he knows something we don't. They met in a nondescript cafe in Gangnam. Hosak wore a cap pulled low, a hoodie zipped to his throat. He looked thinner, paler. He sat down, didn't order anything. And then he dropped a bomb. They're planning a media blackout, he said. A full one, across all platforms. They've already cut deals with the top networks. Next week, all mentions of Jungkook, your track, the press conference, everything gone. Yoongi's blood went cold. You're serious? They'll erase you, like you never existed. Jimin leaned in. How do you know this? Hoseok looked at him, pain in his eyes. Because I helped build it. I was in those meetings. Jungkook said nothing. His hands trembled beneath the table. I'm done hiding, Hoseok said. Tell me what you need. I'll testify. I'll go on record. Yoongi stared at him. Why now? Hoseok's voice cracked. Because I watched you burn alone, Jungkook, and I can't sleep anymore. That night, all four of them stood in the studio. For the first time, all the pieces were aligned. Evidence, voices, truth, and something far more dangerous. Conviction. The machine was about to learn the one lesson it never expected. When you turn people into products, eventually, they fight back. Jungkook stood at the center of the stage. No lights, no dancers, no teleprompters or smoke machines. Just a microphone, a silent crowd of thousands, and a truth so heavy it could crush every wall they'd ever performed behind. This wasn't a comeback show. This was reckoning. Behind him, Yoongi, Jimin, and Hoseok stood shoulder to shoulder, unflinching. No stylists, no earpieces, just men who had survived the machinery of fame and finally decided to turn around and face the beast that built them. The stadium was dead quiet, but the world was listening. Live-streamed, uncensored. A digital audience stretching across borders, fandoms, languages. Jungkook stepped up to the mic and looked directly into the camera. To everyone who has followed us, loved us, supported us, you deserve to know the truth. He took a breath, a long one. We were raised in this industry to perform, to smile when it hurt, to obey when it crushed us, to be perfect even when we were falling apart behind the scenes. And every time we asked why, they told us, because you owe the fans, because you're lucky, because this is the price of the dream. He glanced over his shoulder at Jimin, who nodded quietly, tears already clinging to his lashes. But it's not a dream if it kills you. Jungkook continued, his voice rising. They tried to erase me. They tried to erase us. They blackmailed, manipulated, exploited, and when we bled, they called it passion. When we cried, they called it marketing. There were gasps in the crowd, but no one interrupted. They said I broke down, Jungkook said, that I was unstable, that I lost control. He leaned in, fire in his voice. Damn right I lost control, because control was killing me. He stepped back. Yoongi walked forward, dropping a stack of documents on a table set up beside the mic. These are the contracts, the leaked messages, the evidence of everything they did to keep us obedient. He opened the top folder. Inside, the now infamous clause, artist forfeits right to public expression deemed counterproductive to corporate image. You don't own someone just because you pay them. Hoseok stepped up next, calm, measured, haunted. I sat in those meetings. I watched them plan this. I said nothing. And that silence cost my brothers everything. I won't be silent anymore. Then came Jimin. He walked to the edge of the stage, eyes scanning the sea of faces. I almost left him, he said, voice trembling. They offered me the world if I did, and for a moment I was tempted, because fear makes cowards out of all of us. He turned to Jungkook. But I remembered who we are, what we came from, what we promised each other in broken practice rooms and midnight rooftops. The screen behind them lit up images of their early years, grainy rehearsal clips, studio moments, laughter, bruises, sweat, youth. The raw, unpolished truth of who they'd been before the industry polished them into products. The crowd began to chant, softly at first, then louder. Kotjunghu enus, Kotjunghu enus, Kotjunghu enus. And suddenly, it wasn't just about one man anymore. It was about all of them. Every idol who'd been silenced. Every trainee who never debuted. Every artist who'd been shattered by the very system meant to showcase their dreams. Yoongi turned to the crowd one last time. We're not asking for sympathy. We're demanding change. Jungkook walked back to the mic. And if they come for us after this, then let them, because at least now, we're free. The lights dimmed. A single note rang out. Then came the song. Not an anthem. Not a ballad. But a confession. It was called First Breath. And it sounded like liberation. The next day, the industry cracked. HYBE issued a statement, but it was too late. Public pressure demanded a third-party investigation. Global news outlets picked up the story. Contracts were unsealed. Executives stepped down. Whistleblowers were granted immunity. Idols across companies began speaking up, some quietly, some loudly, but the silence that had once been tradition was broken forever. Jungkook disappeared from the spotlight. No tour, no interviews. But fans began spotting him in quiet places, writing in small cafes, walking by the Han River, laughing with Jimin without cameras in their faces. They didn't need a comeback. They didn't need redemption. Because they had reclaimed something more valuable. Their voices. Their names. Their lives. And in the end, the industry learned a truth it had long ignored. Even the most obedient stars. Eventually, learn how to shine on their own terms. And no one leaves clean. But some, finally, leave free. Jimin walked out mid-show after Jungkook said this. Fans were shocked. Don't pretend you're still one of us. The words echoed like a gunshot through the roaring stadium, slicing the electric tension that had been building unnoticed beneath layers of neon lights and synchronized choreography. For a split second, the music stalled, the LED screens glitched, and every fan in the sold-out dome forgot to breathe. Jimin froze. His mic trembled in his hand, fingers curling in instinctive betrayal, like the body knew before the mind could comprehend. He turned his head slowly toward Jungkook, whose expression was unreadable, serene almost, as if he hadn't just detonated a bomb in front of 50,000 fans and millions more watching live across the world. Jungkook didn't blink, he didn't smile, and that, more than the words, was what made Jimin take a step back. The crowd didn't understand at first. Was it a skit? A part of the performance? A dramatized tension for show? Cameras zoomed in, unsure whether to cut to the crowd's confusion or the sudden tightness in Jimin's jaw. He dropped the mic. The sound it made, metal on stage, sharp and final, reverberated through the dome. And then, without another word, without bowing, without looking back, Jimin walked off stage. Panic swelled like a wave. Staff scrambled backstage. RM's voice cracked over the remaining music, trying to salvage the set with a forced cheer, but the damage had been done. 3 minutes later, the live stream was cut. The concert, the most anticipated reunion showcase in years, was over. And no one knew why. Backstage, Jimin paced the corridor with hands still shaking, ears ringing with a mix of adrenaline and humiliation. The fluorescent lights above him buzzed like insects, a maddening counterpoint to the storm inside him. He didn't stop when Taehyung called out his name. He didn't flinch when a stylist tried to hand him his coat. He only stopped when he reached the end of the hall, one hand pressed flat against the cold steel exit door. Jimin's breath hitched. The taste of sweat and betrayal clung to his tongue. Jungkook's words repeated in his head, poisonous and precise. "Don't pretend you're still one of us." What the hell did that mean? Jimin had spent months preparing for this comeback. He'd pushed through vocal training, dance rehearsals, media rumors, nightmares, and loneliness. The group had gone through rough patches before, but this was something else. And yet, deep down, he had known something was wrong. The way Jungkook had avoided eye contact during rehearsals. The whispered conversations that stopped when Jimin entered the room. The group chat slowly dying out. The tension no one named. Now it had a name. Outside, the night cracked open with the sound of thunder. Rain began to fall in sheets, washing away the screams still echoing from the stadium. Jimin leaned against the door, eyes burning. He could still hear the fans chanting, calling his name, pleading for a return that might never happen. But it wasn't just about him. Something darker was unraveling, and it had started long before Jungkook's cruel sentence. In a hotel room 20 stories above the city, Jungkook stared at his own reflection in the window, seeing not his face but the ghost of a promise he'd once made, a promise broken. He whispered under his breath, as if speaking to the glass or to a version of himself that had died years ago. He needs to remember what he did. And with that, he turned off the lights. "You planned this, didn't you?" Jimin's voice was low, but every syllable vibrated with restrained fury. The private suite the company had set up for the group was now a war zone of silence, broken only by the drip of rain outside and the occasional buzz of a phone that no one dared answer. Jungkook sat on the edge of the long leather couch, arms resting on his knees, gaze fixed on the floor as if it might offer answers. He didn't respond. "You said that in front of everyone, live, on the anniversary stage." Still silence. "You made me walk off stage like I was the problem." Jimin stepped closer, his breath coming out in ragged puffs. "I want you to look me in the eye and tell me why." Finally, Jungkook looked up. But instead of guilt, his eyes carried a strange stillness, haunted but not apologetic. "I did it because someone had to say it." "Say what, Jungkook? That I don't belong, that I'm not one of us anymore." Jimin laughed bitterly, hands trembling. "You could have said it to me backstage, in private, but you waited until the climax of the goddamn show. You wouldn't have listened otherwise." Namjoon's voice cut in from the corner, sharp and exhausted. "Enough, both of you." He stood, arms crossed, his jaw clenched so tightly the veins in his neck were visible. "Whatever this is, we fix it behind closed doors, not under the eyes of the world." "No," Jimin said, eyes still locked on Jungkook. "This isn't something we fix, not when he throws 10 years of brotherhood under the bus for what? A message." Taehyung, who had been quietly scrolling through his phone with shaking fingers, finally looked up. "You should see what the fans are saying. It's chaos out there. Hashtags, conspiracy theories, people crying, people taking sides. Jimin, some think you walked out as part of a PR stunt." "A PR stunt," Jimin scoffed, shoulders shaking. "I couldn't fake the way my heart split in half on that stage if I tried." "You don't get it," Jungkook finally said, rising slowly. "You think this is just about what I said on stage, but it started way before that." Jin, who had been leaning silently against the wall, narrowed his eyes. "Then enlighten us." Jungkook hesitated. His lips parted, then closed again. A long pause, then. "There was a file, sent anonymously, to all of us, 2 weeks ago." Silence again, but now it was different. Dense, suspicious. Jimin blinked. "What file?" "A recording," Yoongi added quietly. He hadn't spoken until now, but when he did, it carried weight. "Of a conversation between you and one of the execs." Jimin froze. "I never. What are you talking about?" Jungkook stepped forward now, fury barely concealed behind his trembling voice. "You were in his office. You thought no one would find out. You told him you'd go solo, that you were only doing this reunion to secure your brand." that you were done with us the moment your contract allowed it. That's a lie, Jimin snapped. I never said that. If someone sent a recording, it was edited, doctored. Then explain why it sounded exactly like you, Jungkook growled. Because people can fake voices, Jungkook. Deep fakes, AI, whatever. God, we've seen this happen to others before. Don't gaslight us, Jungkook's voice cracked. I trusted you. I backed you when the company didn't. When your mental health was spiraling, who held you up? Who dragged you out of that hotel room in Tokyo when you locked yourself inside for 2 days? That has nothing to do with this, Jimin said, quieter now, as if the memories hit harder than he expected. It has everything to do with it, Jungkook said, his voice hoarse. Because I thought I knew who you were, I thought we were blood, and now, I don't know what the hell you've become. Stop, Hobai shouted suddenly, his usual sunshine demeanor shattered by the weight of the moment. His eyes were red. Can't you both see we're being played? Someone wanted this. That file didn't come out of nowhere. Namjoon nodded, voice grim. And if it got to us, it might get to the press. The company's already panicking. They pulled all the YouTube clips, but the damage is done. Jimin collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I never betrayed any of you. We want to believe you, Jin said, sitting across from him. But you have to prove it, because right now we're hanging by a thread. A beat passed. Then Jungkook's voice, quieter now, almost broken. We have 2 weeks until the comeback special airs live. You fix this by then, or I walk. Everyone turned toward him. And in that moment, the silence that followed felt more dangerous than anything else that had been said. Don't open that door, Namjoon said sharply as Jimin reached for the handle to the boardroom. I have to face them, Jimin muttered without looking back. They're not here to listen. They're here to control the narrative. Jimin's hand hovered over the cold metal. Behind that door, the company's top executives were waiting, public relations sharks dressed in tailored suits and guarded smiles. Their polished voices would drip with concern while sharpening knives behind the table. He knew the type. He'd shaken their hands for years. He opened the door anyway. The silence that greeted him was thicker than any applause he'd ever received. 7 faces turned to him, 4 board members, 2 senior publicists, and Minkook, the vice president of global operations, whose expression rarely changed. Today was no exception. Park Jimin, Minkook said with the kind of tone that made you feel small even when you were. Jimin sat down, his jaw tense. You called me. The woman from PR leaned forward, folding her hands like she was preparing to say something kind. We're concerned about your image, about the group's stability. Then maybe you should be more concerned about the person who edited that audio and sent it to everyone. Let's not jump to conclusions, Minkook said smoothly. The recording exists. You haven't denied that the meeting took place. I met with the exec, yes, but not for what you think. I was asking for clarity on our renewal terms, not plotting my own damn exodus. One of the board members, Mr. Song, adjusted his glasses. It's not just the content, it's the timing. The industry is volatile. Rival labels have taken down entire comebacks with less than this. So what? Jimin snapped. You're going to make me the scapegoat. Minkook leaned forward, voice low and surgical. We are going to spin this. But for that to happen, you need to disappear for now. Jimin stared at them, not fully understanding. Disappear. A creative retreat. Medical leave. Pick your narrative, said the PR woman gently. You vanish for 6 weeks. No statements, no social media, no appearances. Let the others continue. Let the storm pass. And then what? Then we see what's left of the damage. Jimin stood abruptly, the chair screeching behind him. You don't get to silence me. We made you, Minkook said, standing as well. And if you're not careful, we'll unmake you just as easily. Outside the room, Namjoon stood waiting. When he saw Jimin's face, pale and trembling, he didn't ask what happened. They want me out, Jimin said, voice thin. Namjoon closed his eyes. I figured. Jimin's phone buzzed in his pocket. Dozens of missed calls, texts, Mentions exploding like wildfire. Leaks. Fan edits dissecting every facial twitch from the concert. Threads pulling apart his past interviews, looking for inconsistencies. A single out-of-context clip had turned his decade of loyalty into a question mark. He scrolled past it all until he saw Jungkook's name. One voice message. Jimin hesitated, then tapped play. The recording started with static, then Jungkook's voice, quiet but sharp. I don't know anymore. I want to believe you didn't mean it, that you're still the taehyung who held my hand before every debut stage, but I can't protect the group and protect you if you're lying. Prove me wrong, Jimin, please. Jimin stood there in the hallway, his throat closing. Later that night, in the dorm that hadn't felt like home in months, Jimin sat alone at the kitchen table. The others had scattered, some to their own apartments, others into the shadows of the city where they could disappear under the cover of caps and hoodies. Only Yoongi remained, silent, seated across from him. Jimin poured 2 glasses of soju and slid one across the table. Yoongi took it without a word. They're pushing me out, Jimin said. Yoongi nodded slowly. You expected anything else? I thought I had time to clear my name. You never do, not in this business, not when the truth gets in the way of the story people want. Jimin looked up. Do you think I said it, what they heard? Yoongi took a sip, then another, then leaned back, staring at the ceiling. No, but I think you've thought about it. Jimin's lips parted, but nothing came out, because it was true. He had thought about it on nights when he'd watched the others rise higher while he stayed flatlined in public favor. On days when the label had booked Jungkook and Taehyung for global endorsements, while he fought to keep his solo streams afloat. On mornings when his anxiety had drowned him before he even opened his eyes. I thought about leaving, Jimin whispered, but not like that, not without them. Yoongi placed his glass down, looking at him now, not as a fellow idol, but as a brother. Then you have one choice. Find out who leaked that file, expose them, or let the world write your ending for you. The next day, Jimin booked a private flight to Tokyo, to the hotel where that recording allegedly took place. The same place he'd broken down behind locked doors. If someone had set him up, it started there. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone else was already one step ahead. In a hidden forum used by rogue fans and ex-staff, a new post appeared. Subject: The Fall of Park Jimin Phase 2. Files scheduled for release in 72 hours. Content: Unseen footage, 2019 behind the scenes. Status: Confirmed authentic. And below it, a single line. He smiled after he said it, like it meant nothing. The countdown had already begun. The city felt different. Skyscrapers still stretched like needles into the ash-colored sky, and cars still raced down glassy streets. But beneath the surface, a current of something raw and electric had taken hold. Protests had erupted across Seoul and spilled into cities around the world. Fans who once waved lightsticks were now holding signs, chanting for justice and demanding names. And somewhere behind it all, in a dim underground editing suite surrounded by empty ramen cups and screens filled with coded messages, Jungkook sat across from Namjoon. You're sure about this? Jungkook asked. Namjoon nodded once. It has to be everything. No redactions, no euphemisms. They don't get to hide behind polished statements and fake apologies. Jimin entered the room, moving carefully, still healing, still haunted, but his steps had purpose again. We air it tonight, peak traffic, worldwide. Yoongi loaded the last segment. Taehyung tightened the straps on the duffel bag that held their only exit plan. No one spoke of what came after, only what had to happen now. When the clock hit 9:00 p.m., they sent the final broadcast into the world. It wasn't just a video, it was a purge. Namjoon narrated over real footage, contracts signed in fear, CCTV clips of meetings cloaked in shadow, financial trails leading to government officials, global media outlets, and tech conglomerates. A network of exploitation that had, for decades, masked itself in glitter and noise. Then came the confession. Seokjin. In a pre-recorded video, clearly shot before the collapse began, he sat alone in a dark room. His eyes were hollow. I thought I could protect them. I thought playing the game would keep them safe. But I was wrong, and I was a coward. He looked directly at the camera. To Jungkook, to Jimin, to all of them, I'm sorry. A pause. If this is being aired, then I'm likely already dead. And then the screen went black. The silence that followed was global. In the hours that came next, arrests began. Not performers, not artists, but the suits who believed they could puppeteer lives for profit. A vice president, 2 security officers, 1 international investor. More names would fall in the days ahead. But not all would face justice. News confirmed Seokjin's body was found in a hotel room in Busan, just hours after the video went live. No foul play reported. Jungkook didn't believe that for a second. Jimin didn't cry when he heard. He just stared out the window, one hand on the glass, whispering, he died trying to fix what he broke. In the weeks that followed, the 5 of them went underground again, not hiding, protecting themselves. The internet debated their future. Would they return to music? Would they vanish? And then one morning, 6 months later, without promotion or a single teaser, a song appeared on every major platform. Never sent artist. Jimin Jeon jungkook, kimtaehyung, kimnamjon, min yoongi. No label, no management, just them. The lyrics weren't polished. The harmonies cracked at times, but it was raw and it was real. A story of silence, survival, and the cost of speaking up. And somewhere in the second verse, Jimin's voice broke as he sang. I thought if I vanished, you'd be safe in the light. But now I see silence was never right. So I sent the message, though I knew I'd fall. You opened it, and now we're free. All of us, or none at all. It charted in hours. But they didn't perform it. Because it wasn't meant for stages anymore. It was meant to burn the machine that tried to consume them. And in its ashes, they became something else. Not idols, not fugitives, not survivors. They became a truth the world could no longer ignore.